Arts, Montgomery County Tea Party, and we're here tonight. We are vetting Mr. Frank Bourgeois.
Right.
And he is running for Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District, Place 5. It is Tuesday night, September 25th. And with me is Del Fessenden, Dennis Tibbs, and Pat Tibbs. So why don't we start off? You've elected to forego the opening, 5-minute opening. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and your experience related to this position and why you feel like you're the most qualified
Okay.
for it.
Yeah, well, I'll start with education. I have a BS and MS in math. I'm currently an adjunct professor at Lone Star teaching math. I was 33 years in the oil and gas business, during which time, although I wasn't trained as a geologist, I learned geology on the job. And that is one of the qualifications I have. I understand this business about aquifers and water and ground level and that sort of thing, and how water gets into the aquifer. And beyond that, beyond the experience, I also have executive experience. I was the president of Woodlands Geophysical Company. Me and my partner started just at the oil bust in 1986, and we sold that company. We offered geophysical services, and again, it was more scientific stuff that I was involved in. Following that, when I retired, I was bought out and stayed with the buying company for 3 years, and then I decided, because I needed to find something to do, I decided just out of the blue to run for the hospital district, and I won. That was the first time I ran for anything. I was never a public person, but I decided to stick my neck out. Anyway, I was on that job for 8 years. During that time, our focus was on straightening out the district because it was in a mess. They were spending money like water, no pun intended, and taxes were high. Anyway, for 8 years straight, or 7 years straight, took us 1 year to get going. We lowered the tax rate, and I think they've continued to do that in the 8 years since I've been out of that district. So anyway, we sent them on a good path. We got everything organized, we felt. So that's my experience in the public service. I was the chairman, and I did mention that, for 3 years. So those things taken together, I feel qualify me to step in this position. Beyond that, I don't have any skin in the game. I don't have any backers. Nobody's endorsed me, so I'm running on my own. With the idea that I would get in there, hopefully would get a board that would be willing to listen, find out what we have to do to go forward. But that's probably all I need to say on that, and I'm sure you'll ask more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Del?
Okay, so with all of the things that you've been involved in, what inspired you to run for this particular office and this particular position for Lone Star?
Pretty much the same reason as the hospital district. I see there's some turmoil now. I know there's a lawsuit going on. I know there's a lot of people complaining about the high water bills. One thing or another, they're in the news. My idea is to get them out of the news. Being on that board, we have to pick up and we have to move forward. It's kind of a wrenching change because I don't think the board did anything wrong. The board that's there now, they did a good job with the information they had. They had decisions to make. They set up a plan, and anyway, I feel I can carry on in that mode, in doing the same, not the same exact thing, but in a manner that the new board would come up with.
Okay, how many board meetings have you attended for
I have
Lone Star?
not attended any.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on a date that I teach, so I'm not available.
Okay, will you have to cut back on your teaching? I guess it sounds like you're gonna plan to give up some other things when you're elected to this
I
position.
would have to, yeah. I would have to do that.
Okay, and you've already made those plans and no problems with that?
Well, I wouldn't, the semester changes in January, so that would be about the time the new board would come on, so that won't be a problem.
Okay. Dennis?
It actually comes on in November, doesn't it? They come on right after the election.
I think it doesn't start till the, those positions, I think, ended at the end of January, is what I understood.
Okay.
End of June?
I think so.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Well, when I looked at the current board members, they say their term runs till January 31st, is my understanding.
Because they passed on adopting the new groundwater plan, which is due for December 18th, because they said the new board would be in place then. At any rate.
Yeah.
Most of the county commissioners and so forth are sworn in on January
I know,
1st.
but I don't think these guys.
So, yeah, I didn't know.
You know, the impetus for making this an elected position is all the grief that the legislature got from people concerning the water bills. And the reason for the water bills going up is because Lone Star forced them through the pumpage limit of 64,000 to go through SJRA and by surface water. So you mentioned in here that the 64,000 came from USGS. I don't think I'd heard that before. How did USGS get involved, and what kind of study did they make, and when did that happen?
My understanding was they made the Lone Star District made a contract with the USGS to do a study. And the study, I think one of the things that going forward in terms of knowing how much water that can be extracted has to do with what kind of studies that are performed. This particular study is dependent on half-life of isotopes. And, you know, is there a very, very good relationship between the water that's in the ground or that's getting into the ground and these isotopes? I'm not sure I'm 100% buying that. So I would be looking for other data, other type of studies to get a better measurement of that. In fact, I do know that the district in their last meeting talked about going up to 100,000. That's not a final decision, but they're thinking they maybe can do that.
Okay. But it's your understanding that the Lone Star got that 64,000 number from the USGS?
Yes, that was their estimate. The estimate, that what they call the TERS, the total estimated, I'm not sure what the other two words were, it's 180 million acre feet. And that's the total capacity if you pump the aquifer dry. And of course you wouldn't do that. So in between 180 million and 640 or 64,000, there's a lot of room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, so in one of the first questions under the general category, and this, of course, this was sent out to all the candidates. The question is, in your opinion, does Montgomery County have a water resource or regulation problem, and why? You answered a water resource problem, and no.
Right.
And the regulation problem, possibly. The Groundwater District, along with SJRA, seems content that we're running out of water and we need to implement groundwater policies of reduction and switch to surface waters provided by SJRA, like Dennis just said. Which is demonstrably pretty expensive. Do you subscribe to the contention by these two governmental groups that we're running out of water? I think there is a term for it. I don't seem to have it right.
Depletion?
What's that? Well, basically, they feel like the extraction of water is exceeding the recharge rate.
Right.
And so, do you subscribe to that we're in a crisis situation?
No, I don't
Or
think
it could
so.
be?
No. I mean, I think there's plenty of water around. Like I said, that 180 billion number from TERS, or that study, versus the number that the groundwater district is working on, plus the water in the lake, which is what is a mixture right now. There's a 30% reduction from what it used to be. The water's there, it's just a matter, I guess, of cost. The water from the lake is more expensive to clean up for drinking purposes than groundwater. But the water's there. I think it's a question of balance. It's a question of getting the water to the people because that's expensive. And that's what drives the cost. It's all that infrastructure.
Well, so there's those that contend that the reservoirs are full, the aquifers, I should say, for both oil and gas.
Mm-hmm.
The aquifers are full from extraction point to the recharge point. And that, you know, we're getting in tune to about $1 billion, you know, that we're gonna have to pay for our infrastructure that makes all the surface water possible.
Mm-hmm.
Was it worth it? Was it really needed at this point in time? I guess is my question. And that's because that's what's double our water bills.
Right. One of the mandates for the water district is sustainability, and the projections that I'm sure you've heard, we're going to be a million population here before very long. I don't know how many years it is, but sometime in the future, we got to have water for those people. We got to have water 50 years, 100 years, whatever. I mean, we have to be mindful of that. And I don't believe the water level is. I don't believe the aquifers are full, because there are reports that there's been a need to have wells lowered because the water table has dropped where the wells are. Some of that may be due to coning, I would think, where they sucking it too hard. So I think the water level has dropped, and I know they don't want to have it drop too much too quick. And that's the sustainability. And I think that's why they came up with a plan. They needed to reduce the amount of pumpage. And so they said, okay, to all the people that were pumping water, which includes the MUDs and private investors and what have you, the city, the municipal, they had to come up with a plan to reduce by 30%, and the plan was to involve the lake.
Okay, so we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
And kind of dive into a little bit more on the economics of spending $1 billion
Yeah.
on treating surface lake water and going around drilling some more wells, infill wells like we have.
Yeah, right,
Where
yeah.
we can do for probably a lot cheaper.
The general thought seems to be that managing aquifers is, should be on the basis of the aquifer boundaries. You stated that it's a reasonable choice to do it on a political boundary, I guess maybe because that's the simplest for the legislature. Would you, if you were in the legislature, would you set the boundaries of the aquifer as the management boundaries? And if so, do you see a way for us to get from here to there?
Well, there's two things going on. We have a political boundary, which is, the definition will be the boundary of the counties. But there's also this area, there's also this area 15, which encompasses, let's see, 17 counties or so around us. Montgomery County's in the middle.
Okay.
And it goes all the way to Jasper on the east side, Washington County on the west side.
And who defined that Area 50?
Those are, again, defined by the legislature. The groundwater area 14, I should have said, sorry.
Okay.
GMA 14.
GMA 14.
Right. Okay.
That was set up by the legislature, and that oversees more than the aquifer that we're in. So even though we're pumping water from, or being under control of the county boundaries, of course the aquifers extend beyond that, and everybody understands that. And then And every county then, next to us is, we could be drawing water for them, they could be drawing water from us, but they have to come up with a plan, we have to come up with a plan here. The groundwater management area people have to look at the regional picture. The state has set up these water districts all over the state. They're all joined together in some, I imagine there's some kind of management district groups, like there's county commissioner or county organizations. So I'm sure they look at each other and say, how are you managing, how are we managing, comparing and that sort of thing. But yeah, it was the decision to reduce the water that you're pumping that drove the water out of the lake, which raised the cost.
Okay, well, I'd like to follow on, but it's Dennis's turn.
Okay, so our conservation district came up with this number 64K, and we're in the middle of GMA 14. And in fact, our Lone Star manager, I think, is the board chair of the GMA 14. And in
Right.
that,
Yep.
in that GMA 14, there's 5 other conservation districts and a couple of subsidence districts. Do you know if everybody is having restrictions put, or are we the only ones? Are we the major water users, or what kind of ratio of water for us to maybe all the others combined is there, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I don't know that. I mean, next to us is Liberty. They're in the same aquifers as we are. Aquifers are running parallel to the coast, like so. So Grimes and Liberty are east and west of us. So they're drawing, but the population is smaller, much smaller. And I don't know if they are expecting the same kind of growth. I'm not sure I answered your question, no.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody's growing like we are.
Yeah.
But if they're not restricting pumpage, and the water's going both ways, basically, if you were on the board, would you vote to increase our pumpage limit?
I don't think I have, I don't have any preconceived ideas about what I would do on the board. I have to learn more about what they're doing, why they did it, the economics. I have to team up with all the other board members, and we have to form a unit. And I'm pretty sure that there are some people that have their mind made up what they're gonna do or what they don't like, and they're gonna drive for that position. I don't take that attitude. I have to have an open mind.
Well, the goal is to get rid of the $500 and $800 monthly water bills. So if we don't change the pumpage limit, what else could we do?
There's got to be a look at how much we can pump from the groundwater, for sure. And with the goal, like you say, of seeing if we can pump more. But if it is a subsidence problem and a sustainability problem, I don't know that there's another answer.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later,
You mentioned in here, under general questions, what are the 3 largest challenges currently facing this position? You had indicated an enormous learning curve, and you said you've been meeting with some of the current board members. Who have you met with so far?
I met with Stinson over here, probably behind you, right? Huh? He's right behind us here.
Yes, he is
Yeah.
over here.
My daughter works for him, by the way, disclosure.
Okay.
And she's my treasurer, although we don't have any treasurer.
She's a Lone Star employee?
No, she's a joint, what do they call them, joint powers?
WJPA.
Yeah.
Who else?
Let's see. Oh, who else? I talked to Kathy Turner yesterday. I talked to, even though he's not, I think he was on the board, Rigby Owens. And I talked to Webb.
Okay. I assume you got differing viewpoints there, quite a few.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I made that comment about, for sure, there are gonna be different people that have quite different viewpoints. But that's what makes a board. I think we don't wanna all have the same view.
Yeah, well, it depends, I
Yeah.
guess. No.
Okay, I'm still trying to put my hands around your answer to the question on will you vote to award contract to less than 3 qualified bidders. You say ideally, and I guess I'm not sure, ideally yes, ideally no, or what. The rest of your explanation there would lead to me to believe you're in favor of free market competition, maximize the number of eligible bidders. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but could you elaborate a little bit on that or try to clarify that for me?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I said, we have to look at value. If these people are putting in a bid that is low just to get the bid, they don't have the experience, you're taking a big chance on them. So low bidder doesn't necessarily get it, and therefore, why does there need to be 3? And if you're screening these bidders, you have to make sure that they can do the work and they can afford it, they don't go out of business on you in the middle of the project. So I think there's some discretion has to be used. On the hospital district we had, and I don't know if it applies here, I know the state has rules for getting people to do work, and there's one at-risk management, at-risk, and I'm not sure, I don't know if this district is allowed to do that kind of thing. I think in the state law, it allows for that, and I know we did that on the hospital
Decision
district.
analysis.
What's that?
Decision analysis.
Yeah.
At risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they tend, with Monte Carlo, so you're doing stochastic modeling, stochastic modeling.
Yeah, stochastic, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, they tend to shy away from that in this county,
Yeah, well, I see, okay.
because they don't really know about
They
it.
don't understand it.
They don't understand it. NOAC's not the only one that does, because I'm on the commissioner's court. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
I guess maybe the confusion that I'm having is because some of the things you cited would be part of the process for upfront, whereas my experience, those are the things that were evaluated after the bids came in. You looked at all those factors and you said, okay, he submitted a bid, but no. And yeah, this is the best one because. So I guess that was the source of confusion, because you're looking at upfront on how to structure the bid versus, or how to structure the offering versus how it's evaluated after the bids come in. Either way, you're looking at trying to get as many options on the table as possible and choose
Right,
the best
right.
option.
And of course, the best way to do that is make sure you have the request for the bid properly written so everybody
Right.
can understand exactly what they're getting into, and they can quote it with the correct dollar amounts. And if they fail to do that, of course, they would be disqualified, right? They're not conforming to the bid. And I guess you know all that anyway, right?
Okay.
So, and I wasn't in the bid work, in the oil and gas side very much. I did 3D surveys, that kind of stuff, but, we had bids for that. But
Okay.
nothing heavy duty construction was
Okay.
I involved in, yeah.
Dennis?
Okay, well, you'd mentioned that in addition to running out of water, that another issue is subsidence. And we hear a fair amount about it. Some people think it's a big issue, some people think it's no issue. What do you know about subsidence from here to the coast, and for Montgomery County? Do you think subsidence is an issue, and is there any evidence that it is or isn't?
My view on subsidence and, the ocean levels changing and all this, that, and the other, and the climate change stuff they talk about, I think the biggest problem is subsidence. And, we have examples in southeast of Houston. There was a subdivision that subsided, it disappeared.
Groundwater, I think.
Brownwood, that's what it was called, yeah.
It's pretty much gone.
So, it's proven, right? And this kind of this kind of these youngish sediments that we're sitting on top of are more subject to subsidence than older sedimentary layers. So subsidence has to be a factor. And I think it's less of a problem as you go north than in the area we are in than as you go into south part of Houston or going towards the coast.
Do you know
I
if
think
Montgomery
it's
County has a problem with it?
Is what?
Does the Woodlands have a problem? Montgomery County, do we have a problem?
I read that there is subsidence, yeah, but how much of a problem, I don't know.
And I guess in order to measure it, somebody got to come up with a plan to establish a system to do it and monitor it over time. Do you know if that's been done or who's done it?
There are monitor wells that in existence right now. That
Monitor water levels and subsidence?
Well, they're monitoring water levels, but I would think if they can continue to run logging, I'm sure the hole's open, they can run logs. I think they can then measure compaction, which is going to translate into subsidence on the surface.
Okay.
You had mentioned that ocean levels in the coastal region being influenced by climate change. Is that what?
No, I'm not a climate change person.
You're not?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just wanted to be clear on
No.
that. Okay.
I think too much is made out of these rising sea levels and not enough is attention paid to the fact that the coastal areas of society, not everywhere, but for sure here.
In Montgomery County?
No, I mean in our area. our
Harris
coast.
County?
Yeah.
Okay.
Harris and South.
Okay.
Okay. Trying to digest your answer about the political party you affiliated with and the party platform. When have you last read the party platform?
When I last read it,
Yes, sir.
I think I read it about the time that they came out with it, when the last Republican Party was at the summer.
Yes.
This
They
summer.
do it every 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I glanced through it, I didn't study it for sure.
Okay.
But I know enough that of what I've read that they get off on tangents about things that I don't think are necessary to be addressed at this Texas, at the state level, and that's what I meant by my answer.
Right. I read that in
Yeah.
there.
Yes, we did.
But I guess the follow-on question to that is, in your reading through there, you found nothing that you would say, oh my God, no. No disagreements?
No, I wouldn't say I had that reaction. No.
Okay. Dennis?
Just what I said about, is this necessary, but I mean, not like, oh my God, sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Have you got time left on that? Can I just a quick follow-on to that? Without
We'll
getting
go
sidetracked.
counterclockwise.
Yeah, we're going backwards.
Can't disagree with the aspirational planks. What does that mean?
What are we talking about there?
The planks in the platform, since this was.
Oh, what I meant there is, okay, it's okay to have an opinion and take a position that you're aspiring to something. Was even United Nations mentioned in there? I think it was. I'm sure there were other things, I should have looked at that before I came here, but so what they aspire to and what they're going to achieve are quite different. And 4 years from now, I'm sure those exact same planks will be in the platform. And 4 years after that, and 400 years later, I'm sure they're going to be there. But that's what I meant by aspire.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Is that gonna count as your question?
Good.
So you've been to the Lone Star office? Have you been up there?
Yes.
So that's a great big office. Looks to me like they can house 100 people, which I know they don't quite house 100 people. But what is their budget, and what do they do other than make the 64 rule and try to enforce that? Do they inspect water plants, or what are we getting for our money with Lone Star?
I had the same question. And when I went up there, I'm being honest, I went up there yesterday to see Kathy Jones, and I was the only person in the parking lot. So I thought, what do they need all these parking spaces for? And so, yeah.
Okay, so the goal then would be to figure out why they're doing that, and if they can't justify it, would we move them down to a rental somewhere at a strip center?
It's possible. I mean, they were, my understanding from Rigby is that they were offered space in the Sander building, and they decided they didn't want that. But that was a very cheap alternative. And so, yeah. But the building's there, it's like a lot of things, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Hospital district built the building also,
Oh, I know.
and people may have been opposed to that.
They didn't care.
My name is on it, the signature, by the way, the signature page,
To do it or to not do it?
to do it. And we ran every analysis that we could think of, comparing rentals to buying, and it came out on top.
Well, how many people work in that building?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Did I say all of them or none of them?
Were you asking about the hospital district?
Well, no, we haven't mentioned.
Which building are we talking about?
Well, the
Which
big old building you mentioned that the hospital district just
Right.
built, how many people work in that building?
I don't know. I mean, I've been gone for 8 years.
So,
Surely more than that.
how many in the groundwater?
Yeah, you don't know.
Well, I saw 4 people.
Yeah. And 3 of them walked, because there's only one car.
Yeah,
How much does Ms. Jones make, do you know?
I do not know that.
Okay.
No.
So coming back to my question earlier, when it's all said and done, we may end up underwriting over $1 billion for a new pipeline to bring water to South County. You know, I mean, and what we're doing is going off of some restrictions, and I'm like Dennis, I hadn't heard the USGS figures that they are the ones that came up with the 64,000 acre feet, which I think translates to 21 billion gallons.
21 billion exactly, or
And-
approximately.
Yeah, so, and I understand how isotopes work, we both work in wireline. And so I'm just, I guess I'm just surprised that they came up with that big a restriction, that they had to, you know, reduce the groundwater extraction by 30% to get to the 64 acre feet, 64,000 acre feet. And on the alternative, spend almost what will be at least $1 billion on a treatment facility and pipeline. And I think they're, you know, when I looked at the white paper a few years ago, they had a price on a desal plant from El Paso. And we do desalination here, oil and gas industry, for instance, offshore, right? And some others. Does that make sense to you? I mean, does that sound logical and economical to you?
To do the pipeline?
Yeah, to do the treatment facility and a pipeline and restrict water when I'm not seeing evidence that we have a groundwater issue or crisis or whatever.
Well, that's what I say. It has to be looked at, and I have to believe that those people were persuaded through the data to take that action.
Yeah.
At the moment, I have no basis to say that number should be different today.
So an SJRA is a for-profit company,
Yes.
basically,
Yeah,
organization.
yeah.
And they stood to benefit, and they're benefiting mightily. Do you know if the water groundwater users, like large volume users, can they buy from somebody other than SJRA, or are they relegated to just buy from them?
There are privately owned water companies that supply water to different subdivisions. Not every
Yeah, but where do they get their water from?
They get it out of the
Out of the ground, aren't they restricted? And if they're restricted, they have to go get it.
They're permitted to a certain amount, and and instead of drawing water out of the lake, they're gonna draw it from the groundwater, then they have to pay a penalty, if you wanna call it that. They have to pay a fee as if they drew it out of the lake. And that's how they adjusted the people that are using groundwater. I think the city of Magnolia doesn't use any lake water, but they have to pay as if they do.
Where's the free market in that?
I agree with you, I agree, yeah.
I'm just,
I mean, it's, and so that's an approach, right? Everybody for themselves, let's see what happens.
yeah.
But then you can throw the law into it, and they said the law says you have to have a sustainable water supply. So how do you square all those? There's three things you have to do, and how do you square all that? That's a difficult problem, I think.
Okay.
Okay, you made reference to more than once to the U.S. Geological Survey, and there are a number of studies and reports and everything else that have been done. Is that the only one that you're really familiar with?
That's the one I'm most familiar with. I know they've been doing studies, I wrote it down somewhere, from 1971 or something. I think there was an initial study attempting to get some estimates, but there have been studies done periodically through that period, and they all come up with numbers, you know, some 0 to 6 inches per year of
Depletion or whatever.
recharge.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the range.
So how do you balance all of those different numbers? How do you determine which one has the highest credibility, which one has the lowest credibility? Do you flip a coin? Do you have hopefully something more scientific than that?
I think the basis would be that you would take the most recent study, thinking that was the most reliable. I mean, I would think that's what you'd almost have to do.
Okay, what was the date on the U.S. Geological Survey study?
I think it was, I'm gonna guess, I think it was 2013.
Okay, that is fairly recent.
Yeah, it's fairly recent. So
So-
it had to be about the time that they came up with the plan, since they would use that data for the plan, and I think the plan was done around that time.
Okay, and you mentioned that USGS recommended 86,000 acre feet withdrawal rates, so that, I'm not sure how they came up with the 64,000 based on I guess they just...
They came up with that based on a figure that they calculated of how much water that is recharged, is put back in.
But where did the 64,000 come in relation to the 86,000?
To the other, in relation to what?
To the 86,000. If USGS said you can withdraw 86,000, why did Lone Star say you can only withdraw 64,000?
Am I put the figure of 86 in there?
Yes, sir.
Where is it?
I made a mistake.
Page 3?
I made a mistake. I was almost a dyslexic probably. It should have been 64, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I was trying to figure out the
yeah, no,
difference between the numbers. Okay.
I put that together from memory rather than to look back at my notes. Memory is not that reliable.
I'm familiar with that. Dennis?
Well, let me ask you a question here under ethics. It said, should local governments be forced to spend billions of dollars without a vote? And you said no. And then you said asking for a vote is expensive and a way for elected officials to shirk their duty.
Well, that's the idea behind representative government, right? They're the ones who make the decisions. And I think that, and I don't know if I wrote this, but a lot of times I think voting is a way to back off from taking responsibility. And I don't think a vote should be required each time.
You don't think a vote by the public be required to vote by the public?
That's what I
We're
mean.
talking about votes on the
No,
board.
by the public, yeah.
Okay. Well, if you kind of extrapolate that to other groups like our county government, you know, the people say, we don't want a toll road, and the commissioners here, we want a toll road. And they say, we don't want a lobbyist, and they hear we need a lobbyist. We don't want a bond, they hear we need a bond. So representative government apparently is not working as good as it used to. So on things like $1 billion investment in a water system, you think we ought to trust our commissioners, or?
There possibly, yeah, there possibly, yeah. I mean, there is some flexibility. I mean, I took just a position there that we have a representative government, and that's what we're supposed to do. We don't go to the, Congress doesn't go to the people and say, should we do this, should we do that, right, with the health plan? Maybe they should have.
Yeah, they pretty well ignore the people.
Yeah, but, I mean, the city of Houston went to the people for the flood money, right? Bond money for the flood.
So your view is we ought to get good people and let them run with it?
I would hope the system works. It doesn't work either for getting people elected, does it? And that's to be due to turnout. So, I mean, I don't know if we can solve every problem under the sun, right? It doesn't work very well, the system, how we can get people in for years and years and years doing things that a lot of people oppose.
Well, it sort of evolves, you know, I guess our legislators thought that we'd trust our water board to appoint the Lone Star Board. And then after a few years of not working, they say, well, okay, we'll let you vote for the Lone Star Board. So maybe that's a case-by-case thing.
Yeah, well, but I understand the reason that, or one of the reasons it was an appointed board was that that board was not, or that district was not a taxing district. And I understand, and it may not be correct, but I understand that usually I think of the word district, I think of tax. But district, if they're appointed, they don't tax, they have fees. It's a tax, right? I don't care what you call this, the tax, but not something that's collected.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got a few more minutes here. So in the question of who has ownership of the land below and they are above, how far of each, and is groundwater considered a person's private property under the Texas Constitution? You talked about the rule of capture, and Article 16, Section 59, Texas Constitution gives the state the right to protect natural resources. Can you reconcile those two as it applies to groundwater?
Yeah, I mean, I know I quoted real estate law. Real estate law says you go to the sky and to the middle of the earth. But of course, we all know that they have you can retain oil and gas, right? You can sever oil and gas. You can sever water, and so
When
in
you say
fact,
sever, explain what you mean.
you can own the property, and I can own the oil and gas rights. Right, you know that. There is also, and I didn't know this until a couple of days ago, you can also sever the water rights. So minerals includes water and oil and gas, and I guess there could be mining. Well, I know there would be mining minerals also, rather than just oil and gas.
So who has the right to do that? The property owner or does the state?
Well, the property owner can own the oil and gas, so the state apparently doesn't get involved in that, except I guess they gave people the right to do that. Certainly in Texas that we know that is the case, right? Because we all have on our deeds that we don't own the mineral rights. In the woodlands you don't, right? It's been taken away.
Right.
And I don't think you own the water rights either. I'm not sure, but I know it's possible, yes. That's what I meant there about that. Severability, yeah.
All right.
Okay, you've made mention that you got a steep learning curve, a lot of things to research and so forth. In normal transitions, you try to do handoff, you learn from incumbents and so forth, and yet, as best I can tell, I don't know the current makeup of the board, but it seems to me that a lot of the incumbents are not running for their positions. And so your corporate knowledge is going to be in real short supply. Do you have any idea why the incumbents might, in your opinion, why they might not be running, and what are you going to do about that problem?
Yeah, I haven't asked that directly. When I talked to Stinson, I could have asked him, why aren't you running, but I didn't. But you're absolutely right. I would hope those people would be, would make themselves available, at least on a one-to-one basis, to hand off in a way like you're talking about. But if you do it, if you run, say, for the hospital board, the people that weren't on the board anymore, they're not in contact with you. They don't educate you. They leave, you start.
But usually you don't. Usually boards don't have a large-scale turnover.
That's true.
And so you do have some corporate knowledge
Yes.
that stays there.
Yes.
In this case, that doesn't seem to be the case.
It doesn't seem to be the case, yeah. So we're gonna have to get that information somehow, and I would imagine the general manager is gonna be the source of a lot of that. Because she's been there since day one. In terms of, not in terms of what the best policy should be, but she can do the financial, she can do the technical.
Okay.
I'm thinking,
Right.
a lot of information has to be studied, but I'm thinking that it's not a hard study if you have the background. When I went to the hospital district, I didn't know a thing about medical stuff, or ambulances, or what they do.
Okay. Okay, Dennis.
Okay, so Lone Star is one of 100 or so.
Yeah.
Last quick question.
Okay, so it's one of 100 or so
Yeah.
conservation districts. Do you know if the others have been appointed, and if the legislature also made provisions for them to elect their boards?
I did not know that, no. I think this is two things. I don't know if all of the other ones are appointed, but I do know that this is the only one that has had the change to electeds. Because it was driven by the 3 or 4 representatives and senators
Yeah.
in our area,
Who were driven by us?
and you guys.
All right, would you like a couple minutes to close?
I don't really think so. I mean, I think I've said all I can say. If I try to summarize, I might misstate something, contradict myself.
No worries. I appreciate you coming in.
Okay.
Really appreciate you coming in, and good luck in your race.
Is this an hour already? Oh my goodness,
Yes, sir.
that went fast.
Yeah,
Tempest Fugit.
time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun.